Welcome back, recruits. I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters, and today we are going to be showing you what is possibly the most invasive HasLab mod we've done so far. GPStar has gone ahead and sent us the 9 LED Cyclotron light replacement kit, and we're going to go ahead and show you how to install those. Let's get going. Okay, so where did you want me to start? We've gone ahead and we've marked off where all of the pegs on the cyclotron lid live. Those are the parts that we're going to have to break. Big shout out to Jono. Thank you so much for your install videos so far. They've been very helpful for us. And we used his video as a guide as to where to mark off where all of these pegs live. Now, according to friend of the show, TJ, he just used a flathead screwdriver. And that's more or less what we're gonna do. I have an assortment of tools to use for this, but I think the flathead is gonna do most of the work for us. First, we're gonna have to undo all of this interior stuff. All of these need to come off, and we also need to pull all of this fake wiring and the CRTs.
For those of you watching the video, I lost a CRT in the early development stage, so that's why I'm missing one.
With all your CRTs and fake wiring removed, it should look something like this. And now we're gonna pull the end filter off. So with an end filter unscrewed, it's still attached. We can't pull it off quite yet, but the screws are loosened. So with that done, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna start the process of, very nerve-wracking, by the way, of prying the lid apart. And then I'm just gonna use a chisel. There we go. That's what I wanted. There's the first one.
Oh my God!
All I'm doing is using my little flathead here to try and get the seams pried apart. And once I get under it with that, I'm using this chisel that I have on hand to help widen the gap further for me, to just use the flathead to pry. There's two.
Oh my God.
There's three. Halfway there, buddy. Oh, that's much cleaner. I might have gotten two with that one. I did. I got two with that one.
That's what we call in the industry a twofer. The last one.
The last one. There we go.
That should just lift right off. Flip it around. No damage.
No damage.
Beautiful. We'll glue that back in.
I would say if you have access to a 1/2-inch chisel, that and a flathead are a much more effective set of tools for doing this. You can wedge in with the flathead to open up a gap, get the chisel in there, and then basically using the same method that you see Jono using, kind of use them to scissor to break that point. You may notice in the video, once I had like 3 broken, I was able to just slide the chisel down and then use the chisel, which creates a much broader contact point, so it's less likely to snap plastic where you have it wedged in.
Don't be afraid to do this. You guys can do it. Like, it's not hard. You can do it. I know it's nerve-wracking, but you can do it.
It is 1000% nerve-wracking, and I do not blame you for being nervous about it. I certainly was. And then I drank 2 beers, and now I'm not so nervous. Now that you have the cyclotron lid in 2 pieces, the next step is you'll notice there's these like flat white lenses over all of the over all of the LED elements. What you will notice when you look closely is that on 2 sides, these flat white lenses have these sort of indexing pieces that pop in, and that is where we're going to want to pry from. So when we pry these are going to go popping right off because they're basically held in there by force. They're more or less a friction fit.
These do go.
All you have to do is take your flathead, get in to one side of where it indexes in, and pry up. Now, at this point, we want to make some markings And they're literally just little index markings so we know where the LEDs align when they fit. Ideally, you should have something that is not a black marker for this. However, the only thing I have on hand is a black Sharpie, so that's what we're using. This is just to make sure that our LEDs end up in the correct orientation once we're done. At this point, it's just a matter of getting these old ones out, and they are just held in with these little plastic sprues. I'm gonna take my flathead and basically try to break the plastic as well as I can. There we go. I know it's probably not translating well to video, but I am not being gentle here. Oh yeah, that's board breaking. Did you hear that, Greg? See that big scratch I just put in the board?
No turning back now.
Oh, they'll function just fine with that. That's just inking on the board. And there we go. And then through the magic of editing, the other three are going to be done instantaneously, just to save some time. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and desolder these wires connecting the stock LED boards. But if you don't have a soldering iron or you're not comfortable with a soldering iron, you can use some wire cutters to snip right at the base, trim off some insulation, and then connect them that way. But
Have me hold this end. I'll be your helping hand, and then you could use one hand to pull it.
So there we go. With that free, we don't need any of this. If you're using the solderless version, even if you're using the soldered version actually, you have two different methods that you can use. You can either measure these lengths of wire out, the distance between the two stock cells, and then trim your wire accordingly. Or, because we know that we're going to end up with 4 relatively even pieces, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just fold it in half and then fold it in half again and trim it that way. This is the wiring that came with the kit.
Remember, easier to take away than it is to add. So It's good to have extra length.
Exactly. We can go ahead and strip our insulation down on each end. And voila. So we're going to repeat that process for all of them. Red is power, so we're going to go to the 5-volt terminal for that.
Well, I'll have the diagram on screen. You can also go to GPStar's website to look at the diagram on how you wire these in.
These are the same kind of screw terminals as everything else you've seen us use so far. So red is power, yellow is data. Okay, and then, so this is exactly why I wanted to desolder and have tinned ends, because it's going to make it a lot easier to get these ground points into this one terminal. When you get to your lid connection ground, it is the black and brown wiring, and they are both going into your ground terminal. And the ground terminal is quite a bit harder to do because you're trying to jam 2 wires into one place. Because we tinned, what ended up happening is one of our ground wires has a much bigger blob of solder on it than the tinning on our other wire, which is making it difficult to get the screw terminal to hold both at once. Before I do anything too drastic here, I'm just taking a pair of pliers and flattening them together. Because we're having some trouble with getting these ground wires to go into the same screw terminal, I just heated up my soldering iron and soldered the tinning together on both of them. That's all it takes right there. Oh yeah, there we go. That should work. There we go. Just kind of checking to make sure everything's gonna fit once it's done. Oh yeah, look at that. So now what we need to do is we need to take our wire lengths and daisy chain out the rest of the cyclotron lights. At this point, we're really kind of in the easy part. All we're doing is daisy chaining all of these boards together. We want to make sure that the power goes power to power, data to data, ground to ground. Now in the diagram that GPStar provides, it is red for power, white for data, green for ground. Obviously we didn't get white wire with our kit. We're going to be using blue wire for that instead. But it's basically the same idea. So you just want to make sure that you're going power to power, data to data, ground to ground on all four. And the boards themselves, the LED boards themselves, are marked with what contact is which. The contact marked as 5 volt, 5V is your power. So make sure you're going 5 volt to 5 volt. The terminal marked as D out. Okay, there is an in and an out side. There is a correct side for the data, which means that you need to make sure that your terminals are faced the correct way. So data out goes to data in, or D out goes to D in. Otherwise, everything is basically straightforward. So in to out. But if you are familiar with Arduino, these are basically NeoPixel jewels. They are custom NeoPixel jewels, but they are NeoPixel jewels, which means that the wiring methodology is basically the same as a NeoPixel. There is a port side for in and a port side for out. And that's where you want to make sure that you're making your contacts at. You're going to repeat this process a couple more times. Just make sure that as you go, you're wiring in to out, in to out.
So it's really difficult to get on camera, but I'm super zoomed in. So you can see from the left side, there's 5V, that's your power. The DIN, the DIN, that's your data in. And then your GND is your ground. And so this is the last one in the chain. So there is no more out, but make sure data in to data out and all these match up.
When you're done wiring everything together, it should look more or less like this. As I mentioned previously, we've got the in to outside, and that's going all the way across all boards.
And we're going to double check everything right now, right, Chris?
And we're going to double check it all right now. So 5 volt DIN ground, 5 volt DOUT ground.
In and out, right?
Exactly, in and out. Yep, in, out, in, out, in, out, and then we don't have to worry about an out on that one. So now, and you can basically feed your excess wire into the space beneath where it sits. And we're gonna make sure that it kind of lines up. We are also gonna test it before we close things back up again. So first of all, we're going to test that we have everything wired correctly. And it's still set to the 9 LED mode, so it's not going to animate quite correctly.
From LED menu.
We have 36 LEDs now.
36 Cyclotron LEDs.
Well, look, they're all lit up too, so you can kind of see too. So that means they're all getting power at least.
36 is correct. 36
is correct. Then we save go all the way to the top and save it.
Okay.
Saving settings.
And then turn it on just to see.
Yep, it's going.
Beautiful. That's set to a specific mode right now. That's really only seeing one lit up. So if we switch the mode, you'll see different settings.
So at this point, it's just a matter of getting your wiring in behind where the jewels sit, where the LED boards sit, and keeping these LED boards aligned with your indexing marks. So I used a black Sharpie, which makes it kind of hard to read, but there and there. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to use a little dab of hot glue to help hold it in place. And if you're using hot glue, you just need to hold it in place until it goes, opaque. You can also use super glue at this step. I would prefer hot glue just in case you ever have to take this apart again and do more inside of your cyclotron lid. Hot glue is a little bit easier to peel off without doing damage to anything. That said, what's really gonna do the work to hold everything down and in place is gonna be your diffuser vents. So.
They are tight, folks, so.
Now we're gonna do that 3 more times, basically.
Hey folks, Greg here. I'm going to stop the video right here because we had 2 major problems come up. First off, Chris's wireless mic had been operating in low power mode for the entire shoot, I didn't realize this, and finally shut off. Secondly, the next steps we do here are very, very evasive and quite frankly unnecessary, so I'm going to walk you through it using VO. Basically what happened is back when we measured out the wires that came with the GPStar kit and cut them into quarters to daisy chain all the cyclotron lights together and the vent light kit, we ended up being 6 to 8 inches short in wire length to put the vent light where it needed to go, which was at the end filter. We didn't have any extra wire on hand, so we went out to Harbor Freight and Chris bought a wire spool. Now, unfortunately, the smallest gauge of wire on the spool was 20 gauge, and it was just too large. We tried to run it through the side of the cyclotron lid and over the top, but the lid wouldn't close because the wire gauge was just too thick. These next steps could have been completely avoided had we just had the patience to order the right gauge of wire, wait 2 days, and film it next week. But we really, really wanted to get this build out to you guys as fast as possible, so we plowed through it. The workaround if your wire gauge is too thick, I recommend 24 gauge wire to avoid doing this, is basically drill a hole through your cyclotron, run the 3 wire gauges on the inside of the cyclotron lid, and then you have to drill another hole in the end filter to get the 3 wires in there. Then you can finally attach your vent light and put it inside the end filter. This was a very convoluted, evasive way of doing this, all because we didn't want to wait a week to get the right gauge wire. I recommend using smaller wire, 24 gauge should work, but otherwise all these steps we did, very overcomplicated for what we needed to do. So anyway, but in the end, everything tested and worked fine. Oh, there was also a matter of the cyclotron lid. The way mine broke off, I didn't feel the need to re-glue it back on in case I ever needed to go back in and fix something. Mine kind of pressure fitted itself back on, so it's not very loose. If your lid is loose, you can just super glue the outer edge of it and that'll solve the problem, or if you really want to get creative, you can use little M2 screws. We didn't do either of those because my lid just seemed to snap on perfectly after we did all the work. All right, with that said, let's get back to Chris.
And that is how you install the 9-cell LED cyclotron boards for the GPStar kit. A shout out to Michael from GPStar for supplying these to us. We really, really appreciate it. Honestly, I've told Greg for a while now, my biggest goal with doing these videos is to start getting products to actually review and show off. This is definitely starting to come together. It's kind of a dream come true for us. So thank you so much, Michael. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or we will have a link to the NorCal Ghostbusters Discord in the description of the video. So please join us there. Feel free to share your builds, your mods, ask any questions that you have on technical how-tos and whatnot. And if you have anything that you'd like us to review or show how to install, please reach out to Greg or I. We are both available on pretty much every social media platform out there except for RedNote. So don't forget to smash that bell, hit like, subscribe, comment. Everything that you can helps us every little bit. I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters, and we'll see you next time, recruits.
Killer replica.